U.S. Supreme Court struck down gay marriage bans nationwide in a landmark decision on Friday, legalizing same-sex marriage in every state in America. In a 5-4 ruling, the court stated that the 14th Amendment requires states to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples and that states must recognize same-sex marriages performed out of state. Within moments, Twitter was flooded with support for the court's ruling and relief that same-sex marriage is now protected under the law nationwide.
Wait, he has to play you in a game of 21?
He has to play me in a game of 21. That's the only way the curse can be lifted.
And did you make the stipulation after the curse to lift it, or is this the reason there is a curse?
That's the reason there is a curse, because Kevin Durant actually agreed to play me in a game of 21. During the season, he went back on his word, and that's when the base guy was like, you know what, curse him. It's not.
And by the way, then he hasn't been healthy since. He hasn't been healthy. He didn't win a title. Look at that.
Yeah, it's
clearly the curse still holds.
No mercy for the base God? He never has mercy on anyone?
You know, but the thing is, we never like to curse people. That's always the last resort.
The last resort.
And
you saw the artwork.
Diplomacy first, and then if diplomacy fails, then the base God puts a curse on it.
Exactly.
I think same-sex couples should be able to get married.
No country should deny people their rights because of who they love, which is why we must
speak with one voice, embrace our differences.
There are those who fail to see your families
like their families.
Imagine the pain of losing a partner
of decades and then discovering that the law
treats you like a stranger.
Gay couples deserve the same legal rights as every other couple in this country.
We are a nation that says out of many, we are one.
A nation in which no one is a second-class citizen.
In which all of us are free to live and love as we see fit, of hope stronger than hate. That's how we've made this union more perfect. There's still laws to change, and there's still hearts to open. Let's seize this moment. Gay, straight, we are and always will be
the United States of America. The president is sticking up for our families.
We're giving away thousands of free bumper stickers so you too can stick up for equality.
Share this video on Facebook, Twitter, or Tumblr. Then go to legalizelove.com to RSVP for your free sticker. This is our time.
Our chance.
I still believe in you. I hope you still believe in me.
I do.
I do.
I do.
Civil authorities have issued an advisory statement. Military radar detected a nuclear attack from within Russia. These missiles will impact population centers within 30 minutes. Follow the messages on screen and get to a shelter.
But Jim, do you know about the BRICS nations? Do you know what's happening with the BRICS? This is another thing the media doesn't talk about. BRICS, B-R-I-C-S, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They have formed an alliance. Years ago, after 9/11, as the cabal, the criminal cabal that runs this country, that runs the West. There is a criminal cabal that runs this country. Okay, our beloved America has been taken over by a bunch of lying, thieving, murderous criminals. I don't know what else to call them, okay? They're Nazis. I really believe it. They're Nazis. Look, the CIA brought all the Nazis, 10,000 Nazis from Germany to the United States after World War II. We didn't bring them over here, you know, to make them Boy Scouts. We brought them over here for them to tell us, how did Hitler do it? We brought their madmen over here to teach us how to build that Third Reich. Okay, what we're dealing with in this country, when you were asking, how's this happening? This Third Reich is here. This Nazism is here. Okay, it's springing up and it's scary. Well, listen, the rest of the world sees it. The Russians are referring to us as the Nazis. If you read carefully what the Russians are saying, if you translate their Russian speeches into English, they're talking about the new Nazis. Okay, and they're saying, we won't let this happen again to us. So, here's what I see is coming. The BRICS nations are saying we've got to create an alternative to London, New York. London and New York control the financial system of the world. We've got to create an alternative. And so for years, they've been building this alternative. And I've been talking about it on my program almost every day for years. They're putting together an alternative World Bank, an alternative International Monetary Fund, an alternative SWIFT, the SWIFT bank wire system, an alternative global currency to the dollar. Guess when this stuff starts to roll out, Jim?
When?
Fall 2015. They already have created these banks. The bank is in Shanghai. The first chairman is an Indian banker. This is already up and running.
What happens to the petrodollar?
Well, the petrodollar is connected to Saudi Arabia. Okay? Here's how we got the petrodollar. In the 1970s, Nixon and Kissinger took the U.S. off the gold standard. So what was going to keep the U.S. dollar going? We removed the gold. Well, Kissinger and Nixon, being crafty as they were, came up with a scheme. They went to the Arabs and they said to the king of Saudi Arabia, we'll make a deal with you. We will militarily protect you. We'll never let anybody take you down if you make sure all oil is paid for, traded worldwide in dollars, and that your excess oil profits are used to buy U.S. Treasury bonds to finance our debt. That was the petrodollar deal. Well, last week, Mr. Obama had a summit of Arab leaders. Nobody came. The king of Saudi Arabia stood him up.
That's right.
They're walking away. They're walking away. The petrodollar is dead. It's going to be killed very soon. When Saudi Arabia says, we've made a deal with Russia and China, we don't need you anymore, Uncle Sam, bye.
Won't China always need our money? No. Don't they want our economy money?
No. Can I show you something?
Yeah, you can show me.
Right.
That's
this article. China could crash U.S. dollar with 30,000 tons of gold. I got this out of an Asian newspaper. Okay. China announced recently that they are going to publicly revise how much gold they have. The announcement is going to be made in September or October. There are very well-informed, astute business executives who are speculating that the amount that they have is 30,000 tons. If that happens, the whole world will switch to China. They're going to be the top dog because they're going to call our bluff, Jim. They're going to say, U.S. Federal Reserve, open up Fort Knox and show us how much gold you have there. And there's none. I don't think there's any there. I think they've sold it. I think they stole it. This is all mirage. These are thieves we're dealing with.
How dangerous is the Ukraine issue between the U.S. and Russia? We're getting over with Russia. And
it's extremely dangerous. The real purpose, the real cause of this conflict, Jim, has nothing to do with Ukraine. It has to do with this economic system that Russia and China are bringing out. That's all this is about.
I mean, the leader of Russia and the leader of China have come together in their own country.
Yes. And Mr. Putin has said multiple times in the past 6 months he's prepared to use nuclear weapons. In March of this year, now I interviewed the general who put this meeting together. So I got this firsthand. In March, a group of retired U.S. generals, retired U.S. intelligence officials met with Russian generals and spies. They met in Germany. It happened in March of this year. The Russian generals delivered a message from Mr. Putin. He is prepared to nuke you. Don't come another step closer. What he's referring to is the border, Eastern Europe and Russia. If you go back 6, 7, 8 years, you will see statements by Russian presidents and generals saying, if the United States and NATO dares to put missile interceptors on the eastern border with Russia, we will have no other choice but to use our nuclear weapons to defend our national security. Now, this year, the first missile launchers go up in Eastern Europe on the Russian border in September, October 2015. We're pushing Mr. Putin. We're pushing him. This is all about who will run the world. These thieves that took control of this country, the Federal Reserve and these international bankers that have robbed and raped this beautiful nation. They have destroyed us. They have defiled us. They have absolutely destroyed the most beautiful nation in the world. And they're so mad. They're so insane. They're so filled with lust for power and money. They're prepared to start World War III. Russia and China are coming together and they're saying, we believe you. You would do it. You would do it. And we're getting ready for you. And I think they're going to do a sucker punch. That's the EMP, Jim. They're going to do an EMP.
How come we have leaders who really are concerned about the EMP?
Yes.
But yet, overall, our political system isn't dealing with it. The congressmen, the senators, they're not dealing with the EMP bomb. But here you have Governor Huckabee sit right here where you're sitting right now and said it's the probably #1 problem facing America is the EMP bomb that would close our complete electrical grid down. And I don't think people really get the EMP. All it does is shut off every motor, shuts off anything that runs, basically. Airplanes would fall out of the sky, trucks would stop running, It's like an atomic bomb, only it doesn't blow up the buildings. It just shuts down the grid, shuts down the engines of the cars.
It fries the circuitry of all electronics. It just fries it. An EMP...
I know Texas is trying to fix the grid. Did you hear that?
Yes. An EMP is done by a country launching an ICBM off the coast of the United States.
Russia has an EMP, do you think?
Well, it's just a nuclear bomb. That's all it is, just a nuclear warhead. So here's the way it's done. You launch one from the East Coast, the Atlantic, one from the West Coast, the Pacific, and one from the Gulf of Mexico. They merge over the country, about 300 miles altitude. They explode. The blast fries all of the electric circuits below. Doesn't kill us. Doesn't knock down any buildings. It just fries electricity, all the electrical circuits. Okay.
So there's no water being pumped.
Nothing. But here's the, and I've had some. I won't say names. I've interviewed some very intelligent people in finance and stuff, and we've talked about EMP, and they said, well, Rick, we'll fix it. And I'm almost, I'm reluctant on the program because I don't want to embarrass them. And I'm like, how are you going to fix it, sir? Nothing works. Where are you going to go to get the parts? Nothing works. The generators, the circuitry, the big components of our electrical grid, I've been told by experts it could take 10 years to rebuild them. And we don't have it in the United States. First of all, we don't have it to start with. They come from China. They come from Germany. They come from other nations. They're going to be the nations that are going to nuke us. You think they're going to sell us the stuff to fix it? Jim, we're dead if this goes off. We're dead. And this is my greatest concern, that any day it's going to happen.
Read the book 1 second after.
Yes.
The author sat right there in that chair, and I'm telling you, we are living in a fairy tale. We're living in, we're not living in the Bible. That's why we're not built on truth. We refuse to even teach the revelation to the church. The Revelation is the final book in the Bible. It is the last days. It is the book that Jesus Christ dictated.
Yes.
And inspired to John. And it's time. The church, it's going to be too late. And it's, you know, let's just have happy. Let's have happy church. Let's dance. You know. And they always say, well, God's going to take care of us. God does take care. He gave us His word.
I went downstairs. I was leaving the Pentagon, and an officer from the Joint Staff called me into his office and said, I want you to know, he said, sir, we're going to attack Iraq. And I said, why? He said, we don't know. He said, I said, well, did they tie Saddam to 9/11? He said, no. He said, but I guess they don't know what to do about terrorism, and so they think, but they can attack states, and they want to look strong, and so I guess they think if they take down a state, it will intimidate the terrorists. And you know, it's like that old saying, he said, if the only tool you have is a hammer, then every problem has to be a nail. Well, I walked out of there pretty upset, and then we attacked Afghanistan. I was pretty happy about that. We should have. And then I came back to the Pentagon about 6 weeks later. I saw the same officer. I said, why haven't we attacked Iraq? We still going to attack Iraq? He said, oh, sir. He says, it's worse than that. He said, he pulled up a piece of paper off his desk. He said, I just got this memo from the Secretary of Defense's office. It says we're going to attack and destroy the governments in 7 countries in 5 years. We're going to start with Iraq, and then we're going to move to Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. They wanted us to destabilize the Middle East, turn it upside down, make it under our control.
Far too long now, and the rest of Congress, including the executive branch of government, along with the judicial and legislative, have turned your back on the American people and their core values and principles. I can say with great confidence and speak on behalf of all Americans that your actions against this country are treasonous. All of you, against the will of the American people, have aided and abetted the enemy. You and the rest of Congress, including the President of the United States, have went against the will of your people. In Syria, regardless of your position and vote, whether it is a yes or no, is still a political smokescreen. I believe wholeheartedly you do not care about the will and well-being of America or its people. You lied to the American people about the chemical attacks in Syria. The American people know that it was our government that is most likely responsible. There is strong evidence, including video, that these attacks were carried out by Al-Qaeda, and you advocate starting a war, even maybe world war. President Barack Hussein Obama has been supporting terrorism. The United States has been funding and aiding its organizations, including the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda, for many years now. The same enemy we're supposed to be defeating on the battlefield. At least one country in this world stood up against this government terrorism that you guys support in Egypt. The people of Egypt throughout Mohammed Morsi, which Obama supported as well, as countless Christians have lost their lives under evil people such as this. You swore an oath to protect us and protect from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. The simple irony is the domestic enemy now in this country is the people and government of the United States. And McCain and you and the rest of our leaders are accountable for their actions. It's too bad someone like me is not in office to hold you accountable, because if I was in a position of power or authority, I would have you all arrested and tried for treason against my country under the grounds of 18 U.S.C. 2381 treason U.S. Code. Whoever owing allegiance to the United States levies war against them or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort within the United States or elsewhere, is guilty of treason. That is the code. The American people are sick of it. This country rose up against you recently. The ratio, hang on, I have a right of free speech, I can finish. The American people opposed to going to war with Syria, which includes many Marines and other veterans by the thousands, was 499 to 1. That is 99% of the people of this country. So if you and the rest of this government are truly for the American people and representatives of us, I suggest this time you listen, because nobody wants another war or strike in Syria or anywhere else. Bring our brothers and sisters home.
Images have emerged on social media purporting to show U.S. servicemen speaking out against a looming strike against Damascus. People in military dress are seen posing in front of cameras with signs saying that they didn't sign up to fight with al-Qaeda in Syria. These pictures cannot be verified. The Pentagon is reportedly looking into the possible identities of those involved. For some perspective on that, I'm joined by Gordon Duff, a Marine Corps veteran and editor of the independent news website Veterans Today.
By this time, 13 years of war, people in the military have no faith in anything the government has to say at all. They're sick and tired of the war, and the government has no credibility with the rank and file in the military.
What do you make of the fact that Washington is backing Syrian rebels who are fighting alongside militant groups, some of them linked to al-Qaeda?
You know, it's something that we are noticing every single day.
You're asking about the danger of escalation, really, with Russia and China. I think it's very, very serious. And I think the markets are telling us that. And I think the price of oil is telling us that, because it's really a big thing. So you can't ignore that. No, I don't. I think it's a false flag. I think really, indeed, and it's big risk. This can escalate, and Russia could get involved. What if there's an accident and 100 Russians get killed by our bombs? Who knows? Some type of unintended consequences. Wars always expand.
We do not need a war in Syria. The war in Syria is a hoax. Just like the war in Iraq was a hoax under Bush, the war in Syria is a hoax under Obama. He's talking preemptive strike, the same as Bush. He's talking sending in troops, the same as Bush. The difference is that once we start a war in Syria, it's not just a war with Syria. Russia will be called into Syria's defense.
Ultimately, I do not want any intervention anymore in the Middle East. All wars are lies, and I've been there firsthand to see it, and it's not good.
So the whole idea behind this war policy, make us believe that he didn't start the war, which is what he's doing by preemptive executive orders or whatever.
Let me just say briefly where we're at. I think we're 3 steps from war with Russia, first time ever. There's talk of moving NATO troops to the Polish West Ukrainian border. If so, Putin will almost certainly send 100,000 troops into South and East Ukraine. He's only in Crimea now. That's the Cuban Missile Crisis, only worse. And then the next step, let's don't even talk about it.
I think it's the 51st chapter of the prophet Jeremiah. He tells us what happened. It wasn't nice. It wasn't nice at all. It was pretty rough. In fact, God rose up against Babylon. My God. And it says, spare ye not her young men, destroy ye utterly all her hosts. Thus the slain shall fall in the land of the Chaldeans, and they that are thrust through in her streets. Ancient Babylon had violence, murder, and mayhem in her streets. But God destroyed Babylon completely. You can go to Iraq now and visit Babylon. It's only 55 miles south of Baghdad, and nothing is there. Nothing is there. How completely displeased was God with Babylon. But Babylon had a daughter. And that daughter is found in the book of Revelations in the 18th chapter. It's called the Mystery Babylon. And it said of the Mystery Babylon, and an angel cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people. Come out, lest you be partakers of her sins and her plagues, for her sins have reached unto heaven." Who is that mystery Babylon? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that these scriptures refer to the United States of America. Now, we are willing to sit with the scholars. You who say we are mistaken, I'm going to prove and send you home thinking deeply about what we can do to help save America from herself. Listen, it is your mistreatment at the hands of white people that has caused God to send down his judgment on America. Now you, in your silliness, are so forgiving. White folk ain't even asked for forgiveness. I want you to hear me. White folk haven't even acknowledged that they did you wrong. They have not repented for what they did to your fathers and what they're doing to you and what they plan against your future. But God knows their thoughts, their plans, and because he knew them before they came into existence, he planned their destruction before they were born. I want you to hear me. See, God delays judgment so that his people will see that the people he has judged are worthy of what they're about to get. Do you hear me? America is in trouble, and I say, God, is about to wipe this nation from the face of the earth. Now listen, I'm not crazy, I'm not drunk. How long do you think a nation can do evil and not face the judgment and the wrath of God?
America is Mystery Babylon. When you sit there and you dissect the scriptures, America is Mystery Babylon. The rider on the white horse who goes out in the name of peace, conquering and to conquer. America goes out conquering countries in the name of peace. They conquered Iraq in the name of peace, Afghanistan, Libya. Now they want to go to Syria. They want to stop Iran with their nuclear weapons in the name of peace. America goes out conquering and to conquer. But this has been their plan all along for over a decade, is to conquer all these countries.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me, and one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, I don't know. He said, I guess they don't know what else to do. So I said, well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda? He said, no. He says, there's nothing new that way. They've just made the decision to go to war with Iraq. He said, I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments. And he said, I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail. So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, are we still going to war with Iraq? And he said, oh, it's worse than that. He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
RT just came out with a news report saying the Syrian rebels are going to bomb Israel. I'm telling you right now, I don't know when war is going down, but the powers that be are determined to make sure that this war happens.